It's a return to the streets of Nuremberg for the first time in 15 years. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Norisring, the ADAC GT Masters, round 2 of a 6-round season, races 3 and 4. We are getting ready for qualifying here at this iconic street circuit. It's wonderful to be back here. 2008 was the last time that we were here at the Norisring, a very, very long time ago. The GT Masters looking somewhat different this year after fairly turbulent winter, but the series looking great now. A good foundation to build from here. Not as many cars as we've come to expect over the years in GT Masters, but it's a grid that is growing and will continue to grow as this season progresses. So a 20-minute qualifying session getting ready for race 1, which will be later on today. Then we'll have another qualifying session tomorrow, and there will be a second race tomorrow afternoon. It was a great season opener at Hockenheim a couple of weeks ago. We saw Jackson Evans and Tim Zimmermann take a debut win for Christoph Huber's team, Huber Racing, in the Porsche 911. Rather appropriate for the Festival of Dreams, celebrating 75 years of Porsche. Let's have a look at the track here at Norisring. It is 2,162 meters around, and it's been in existence since 1984. We're looking at the DTM pictures here. You can see it was a bit of a traffic jam into turn 1 back when DTM were here last year. It is a track that courts controversy. No runoff areas, no gravel traps, just very, very solid concrete walls alongside the circuit. There are 4, well, some would say 5 turns, some would say 4 turns, depending on how you count the final corner, but it is almost oval in configuration, just the Schuller S curve, which is a little chicane that comes out of turn 2 into turn 3, but really it is 2 hairpins joined together by 2 straights. Dave Richardson alongside me, great to be here this weekend. What an exciting circuit this is, looking great. Isn't it good to have the GT Masters back on the streets of Nuremberg once again? Absolutely. I didn't realize until you informed me just how long ago it was that they were last here. As you can see in the points then, it's very, very close at the top between Zimmermann, Evans and Gerschitz and Muller, just a point in it, and that makes it all the more exciting. And of course, as we come here to the Norisring with the ADAC GT Masters doubleheader weekend, of course, because from here they head off to somewhere altogether different, and therefore it's 2 really, really convoluted weekends of racing, because you set the car up in a completely different way for this short street Franconian Monaco, as it is known locally, and then of course head off to somewhere completely different. So a lot of work to be done for the teams in terms of setup and preps for the car, but to set the car up perfectly for here, it's not the work of a moment. It is such a challenging circuit, and always, I mean, I wax lyrical about the place because I love it, because it always, I feel it's a real leveler in terms of cars. And as we saw when we were looking at the track facts, it's very easy to get it wrong here. And when you do get it wrong, it bites you on the bottom quite hard. It really does, yes. No allowances for mistakes here. Of course, data is everything. 5 of the teams on the grid here in the ADAC GT Masters are also fielding cars in the DTM, which is part of the package, the headline of the package here this weekend. So there will be data that will be transferred between GT Masters and DTM. So you would say that Landgraf, Schubert, Haupt Racing, Grasser and Team Engstler are all teams that will be taking data from the DTM and applying it here to the GT Masters, and also vice versa. Data that's picked up in this session will be passed back to the teams in the DTM running. I was just talking about round 1 at Hockenheim. As you said, Dave, a very, very different kind of circuit, and very different to what we've got coming next at the Nürburgring. We mentioned that Jackson Evans and Tim Zimmermann won race 1. Race 2 was won by Sven Muller and Finn Gerschitz. They were looking very impressive indeed. It was Porsche who won both races at Hockenheim. It was very appropriate because we were celebrating 75 years of Porsche sports at that event. And along with the Carrera Cup racing that weekend, Porsche won every single race that weekend, which was very appropriate. But The bar is very high in ADAC GT Masters. It can all change in just a moment. And here in this qualifying session, grid positions will be everything because of the narrow nature of this street circuit. It's bumpy in places. It's very, very important to start towards the front of the grid on the front row, if at all possible. It is a short, sharp qualifying session of just 20 minutes. And as you can see, there's not a lot of action going on. There are 3 or 4 cars doing sighter laps at the moment, but I would expect the track to get busier as this session progresses, as more and more rubber is laid down, as the track warms up, and it is warm here. Air temperature 21.8 degrees centigrade. The track temperature is at 25.2. That's only going to get hotter under the blue skies here. So I would suggest that the fastest times in this qualifying session are going to come close to when the clock strikes 0. Of course, if you leave it late, you're also running the gauntlet because there could be a red flag, there could be an issue, and that could really throw any plans to put in a hot lap at the end of the session.
This I always find really quite curious in terms of how the teams manage this. Because, as you say, short, sharp qualifying session. Janis Fitcher we're watching right now, who's just warming that car up nicely. Trying to generate temperature into the tyres, and despite the track temperature that our meteorological expert alongside me has just informed us of, you still need to really burn some heat into those tyres to propel you around here. And Janis Fitcher then quicker than anyone, and you would expect that because it's the first really meaningful time that we're seeing, which is a 58.813, as Brian has correctly identified. Expect to see those times come tumbling down, but this is the strategic decision. Do you go out, bank a lap, and get the times on the board, not knowing that across the remaining 16 and 3/4 minutes of this qualifying session, anything can happen, and most likely probably will, and therefore, as an insurance policy, sometimes it pays to have one in the bag, as they say.
Yeah, absolutely. Getting a competitive time on the board and then maybe having another go later on. That would be my strategy, but I'm not a team boss, thankfully. So they've got strategies that they've planned. Now, just to give you an idea, yesterday, Maxi Goertz in free practice put up a fastest time of 49.671 in the DTM. Free practice yesterday, we were in the 49.2s, I think, if I remember correctly. Was it 49.3, something like that?
But it is so close, isn't it, between the categories, you know, and it just proves how good the GT Masters is and the cars are. And actually, what an absolute bag they are to drive for these drivers. They have to really be on it, particularly here. You made the point earlier on, and forgive me if I'm talking too much because I'm not being paid for this. But, you know...
Me neither.
When you're out on a track like this, where there are no acres of tarmac runoff area, and you have very, very unforgiving Armco barriers or concrete walls, you've got to be millimetrically perfect wherever you put that car.
Yes, and there are some drivers here who are not only new to the Norisring, but are also new to GT3 racing. So this is a steep learning curve. You need to extract every centimetre out of the track, but you get it wrong, and you're going to curtail your day, potentially your weekend. And these young drivers are having to learn quickly.
On that basis of the very valid point that you make, surely everything would point, therefore, to those drivers that have got experience of the Norisring being able to extract the maximum from this. You know, coming into this weekend, when we learned that Maxi Goertz was going to be back in the car, you know, huge excitement because Maxi is a great driver and a great character, and I'm pleased to say I know him really, really well. You'd expect him to be P1 across everything, but that hasn't been the case, Brian.
No, and the balance of performance in these cars, also the great leveler. You have cars that are front engine, rear engine, some are turbocharged, some are naturally aspirated. But Maxi Goertz, he has a lot of experience. He is an ex-GT Masters champion, and as already mentioned, it's good to welcome him back here. He's sitting in for Arjun Maini, who is racing in the DTM this weekend. The ADAC rules do decree that if a driver is racing in the DTM, they cannot do the GT Masters on the same weekend, but it's wonderful to have Maxi Goertz here. It'll be his 127th start in GT Masters, can you believe? He's also going to be joining us at the Sachsenring and Hockenheim Ring. He was crowned the DTM champion here in 2021, so he loves this place. He proved that by being fastest in free practice yesterday. But yes, Maxi Goertz, is not going to have it all his own way. The laps are very, very short. 49 seconds is what we're potentially looking at for a front row start, the low 49s. And if that is the case, just every little millimetre will count, as we see Janis Fitcher putting in a 51.749. So still a bit of work to do there. Janis Fitcher, who is sharing driving duties with Nico Menzel for Huber Motorsport, not to be confused with Huber Racing. Those are two entirely different teams. Huber Racing, of course, Christoph Huber, a real legend who runs that team, and also Reinhard Huber, who runs the other of the Huber teams, Huber Motorsport, just to confuse us, like we need any confusing at all. Right, we're starting to get a few more cars out on track. You can see Eduardo Cosateng for Schubert Motorsport. He is sharing driving duties with Ben Green, also out on track at the moment. The track divided into 3 very short sectors, and you can see those are represented by the little boxes underneath the graphic that has the driver's name on it. If a driver sets the quickest time of anybody in a sector, the box will go purple. If the driver sets a time that is a personal best, the box will go green. Anything else will remain grey. So we're looking for purple times. Well, we're early in the session in the grand scale of things, even though we've only got 12 minutes remaining. And Janis Fitcher is the quickest at the moment, a 50.443. I would expect to see that time to come down as this session progresses.
Yes, a sub 50 time we're expecting to see. Now, Janis Fitcher has done a lot of laps, hasn't he? And he is certainly one of those drivers that is considering and going for the fact that banking something early on is going to be very, very important. Also out there, Cosateng and Valilko, as you can see, is 50.382 is the best that we have. So we're expecting just around 4/10 to be taken out before we get to the end of the session, which is just under 12 minutes away, 11:46 if you're watching the clock as accurately as I am, the top left-hand side of your screen. So we will see how it develops and how it plays out, but time is not of time very much is of the essence here, because it's not plentiful. These, I have to say, from an entertainment point of view, I love the short, sharp qualifying, because everybody's got to get out there and you've got to deliver, and you've got to deliver straight away.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no messing about, but of course one mistake and that's going to put you in the wall or potentially at the back of the grid. So it is really a white knuckle ride. Now, Janis Fitcher, the first into the 49s, 49.957. So the times are starting to come tumbling down. There is Eduardo Cosateng in the mighty BMW, teamed up with Britain's Ben Green in the Schubert Motorsport car. They got a 2nd and a 4th place at Hockenheim. But Eduardo Cosateng learning this in at the deep end. He's fairly new to GT3 racing, and what a place to come to learn. In the background, that's Juanda Mocoena that you can see for the Engsler team, and Luca Engsler very much doing the training on that. What did I say that was so funny?
It's just your absolute pinpoint accurate pronunciation, which I'd have made a right hauling of it. You did it very, very well. I'm very impressed with you.
Thank you very much. I'll have that in writing. Yes,
the only thing, but...
Yes, indeed. Well, Team Engsler, who are doing double driving duties with DTM. Luca Engsler is racing in DTM this weekend, so he's very much taking a backward step. He was at Hockenheim. He was tutoring and really working with the drivers. He is a great driver coach. He's a brilliant driver in himself, but has been really, especially with Eduardo Cosateng, he has been working with him, and he drove alongside him in another GT series as part of the training program. So he's been really nurturing him. But we spoke to Luca yesterday. He said he's had to take a bit of a backward step because he needs to focus on DTM this weekend. But the team, a mighty team with that Audi, looking to make progress. And it's great to see Eduardo Cosateng currently in P3, but not really a competitive time at the moment. So that will all change in the next 9.5 minutes.
The Engsler team, of course, Engsler has been a name associated with the very highest levels of motorsport for many, many years. Just yesterday we were talking to Franz Engsler, father of Luca, of course, and still a very competitive racer himself. In fairness, Brian, his old DTM car runs in the DTM Classic, and Franz was saying, you know, I desperately want to get into that car. Now, Benjamin Hietez, who I want to talk about a bit here, because I've I've had the privilege of talking about Benjamin in the States when he was racing in a series in the USA, and he was being coached at that time by somebody none other than Stefano Guy, who knows a thing or two about GT racing as well. So he's of good stock, may I say.
Well, Benjamin showed well at Hockenheim, and he did put the car on pole position, but for trauma in the opening lap of the first race, and came home in 8th place. So certainly very experienced, along with Marco Mappelli. Janis Fischer, you can see from your timing screens, is chonking away. Purples are popping up. 49.808 is the pole position time. Salmon of Vega, a couple of seconds behind. And,
what's this chonking?
Chonking away.
Chonking away. That's good.
Pushing hard.
Okay.
And Janis Fischer, a driver who, along with Nico Menzel, lots of potential. They had a 3rd place in their debut in the GT Masters and a 6th place as well.
Nico Menzel is a talent. There is no question about it. He's a great guy as well. So Nico Menzel going to be very, very interesting. Now, Janis Fischer, he's improving lap upon lap. Now, of course, the traffic is increasing a little bit as well. So look at this. He's taken 2 tenths out from the last lap. 49.592 for Janis Fischer. Tim Zimmerman currently P2. Then it is Salmano Vega ahead of Igor Valilko. They are the top 4 currently.
Well, in GT Masters, tyres are very limited, 3 new sets per weekend. That covers free practice, quali, and the races, and they're allowed 2 old sets for free practice. So using the rubber wisely and not taking too much out of them too soon is very, very important. There are no tyre warmers allowed, so they need to get the tyres into the operating window, but at the time when the track is potentially going to be the fastest. So again, as already mentioned, as this session progresses, we would expect to see the times coming down. Janis Fischer clearly pushing early on. Let's hope he's not taking too much out of the tyres. With still 7 minutes remaining. The only driver into the 49s at the moment, Janis Fischer. Ralph Aron, he is at a 50.182, so he's about half a second off that. Ralph Aron, another driver, very talented, alongside Alan Valente in the HR team, Haupt Racing Team Mercedes, looking to improve on a best of 7th place at Hockenheim last time around. Now you can see from your graphic, Benjamin Heites has gone the quickest in Sector 1 of anybody, and a personal best in Sector 2. So let's see what he does when he crosses the line here. It is a 49.847, so not enough to get him onto the provisional pole position, but a front row start if things were to remain as they are now. So a little over 6 minutes remaining. Janis Fischer still improving, so he's not taken the most out of those tyres yet. Having said that, his middle sector has gone grey, so that is nothing too impressive. Benjamin Heites continuing to improve. Sector 1, 18.438 in Sector 1, so that's better than anybody else. That is a couple of hundredths quicker than Janis Fischer, and his Sector 2 was just grey, so not too spectacular, about 2 tenths off the quickest in Sector 2. Sector 3, a personal best. But Tim Zimmerman now popping up into P2, so the times are coming down. Top 5 into the 49s. The times are tumbling all of a sudden. Janis Fischer, 49.592. Benjamin Heites, Tim Zimmerman, Alan Valente into, what a great angle that is, Alan Valente into 4th, but that is eclipsed by Ralph Aron, who now pops up into 4th place. So the times are changing with every corner. Janis Fischer, 49.592 at the moment. You can see Salmon Vega into the 49s. I can hardly keep up with this. It's a short lap, so the times are changing very regularly, and most of the drivers now into the 49s. Suddenly, the top 6 into the 49s as the drivers turn the heat up with less than 5 minutes remaining.
As you predicted, the times chonking down when you get towards the end of the session, as we ride on board with Benjamin right now. And yeah, you're absolutely right. Some of the camera angles that we have and that we're able to bring you in our programming are utterly awesome. He's had a bit of a problem parking in the parking, as you can see, has smacked the mirror already. There's been invoice involved for that. It's not too much of a concern at the moment. Now, this Sector 1 was not too brilliant for him either, as he makes his way through the Choloresses right now. And very interesting, when you come off the Choloresses and you get right to the wall there, which is probably what caused the mirror to somewhat break. There's a little 1 or 2% of banking there on the concrete paved area. And several drivers telling us yesterday that if you use that correctly, you can get a little bit of a slingshot off there using the bank in it. Just helps you, propels you. But the trade-off is that does, of course, attract all the grit and grime as cars run towards that. So it can be a bit dirty there as well.
The thing is, they need to get out there, don't they, with such a short lap. As we've already said, every last millimetre counts, so it's getting as close to that wall as possible. Maybe the cracked mirror means he got just right, enough to just brush the wall slightly as he comes out, but using every part of the track to extract as much as possible. Benjamin Heites continues to improve. Sector 1 of 18.338, so the quickest of anybody, but the quickest in Sector 2, Salman Vega jumps to the top of the timing screen of 49.564. Great stuff from Salman. He's teamed up with Elias Sepinen. They are a potent driver combination. So 49.564 is our quickest time that we're aiming for, with a little over 3 minutes remaining. The times are tumbling down non-stop. Benjamin Heites quickest in Sector 1. We'll keep an eye on that. We can see Alan Valente in the number 2 car. Alan, who is sharing driving duties with Ralph Aron. So he's got a bit of space out on the track. It's not a busy grid, so there is room to stretch your legs and to find some space as we look at some real heroes from the Hockenheim first round. The number 92 car, Tim Zimmermann at the wheel, a driver who knows all there is to know about a Porsche, and he, along with Jackson Evans, we always knew they were going to be championship contenders, and they are, along both Tim Zimmermann and Jackson Evans, currently at the top of the point standings, as we saw at the top of the show, but just 1 point clear of Finn Gersitz and Sven Muller. Riding on board with Petra Umbra Rescue, who will be sharing that driving seat with Maxi Goertz, and he continues to work on getting the times down. Currently in 8th place, about 7.5 tenths off the provisional pole position time. So it looks like we've got all cars out on track at the moment. Let's have a replay here, and this is a Lamborghini getting up close and personal with the wall. Well, we said they were going to get close. The mirror was cracked already, and now the mirror is very much reshapen as it brushes against the barrier and continues. But yeah, that's how close to the wall we're getting in the GRT Grasser Lamborghini, with Benjamin Heites at the wheel, sharing with Marco Mapelli. A little under now 90 seconds of this session left. It is such a short lap, so still time to get at least another lap in for all these drivers. Everybody is out on track. If there was one event where we're happy to have a few less cars, it's probably here at Norisring, because it is so tight. We're expecting a lot more cars at the next round at the Nürburgring. Several have already signaled intent of being there. But this is what we're focusing on today at the Norisring. It's round 2 of the ADAC GT Masters, qualifying for race 1 of the season. And the number 91, the team used by Race Motion Porsche 911 GT3R, with Finn Gersitz, a driver who has really impressed in his debut in GT Masters. A very, very different discipline to what he's used to. And he's jumped into the GT3 car, was so impressive at the Hockenheim ring, and has taken to the Norisring as well in the number 91 car, currently in P7. Salman Vega, though, is the man at the top of the timing screens, 49.420. Now, that's the time that would be very competitive in the DTM race that's coming later on. He is 0.081 ahead of Janis Fitcher. So it's Mercedes from Porsche, from Lamborghini. Benjamin Heites' Lamborghini with the rearranged mirror. The checkered flag comes out, so any drivers that are on a lap are able to continue, and their time will count. Been good to get through this session without any red flags or any traumas like that. All hail the ADAC GT Masters. You can see a big crowd expected here at the Norisring this weekend. The sun is shining, the temperatures are hot. It's perfect for a spot of racing. And there is the driver who's looking good for pole position, Salman Vega, 49.420 from Janis Fitcher, and Benjamin Heites in 3rd place. Of course, the drivers get points for quali, 3 points for pole, 2 points for 2nd, 1 point for 3rd. So this will affect the points championship as well. Salman Vega, a 3rd place in race 2. Of course, they had a bit of bad luck in race 1 at Hockenheim with Elias Seppänen at the wheel with a steering failure, which meant they had a non-finish. But making up for it, very strong at Hockenheim with a 3rd place, improving further, and it's pole position and 3 points to Salman Ovega, 49.384. Great stuff from Salman.
Brilliant, absolutely brilliant, and compelling to watch as well. And as you say, all hail the GT Masters drivers for not managing to get too close to the wall, and their confirmation of our classification, Brian.
Salman Ovega, 49.384 ahead of Janis Fitcher. Benjamin Heites, Tim Zimmerman, a good P4 ahead of Finn Gersit. All credit to him. Alan Valente, Igor Veloko, and Petru Umbra Rescue rounding out the top 8. 9th, Kwanda Mokoena. So he's done well there, just a little over a second off the pace. That is pretty good. And Eduardo Cosseteng in the Schubert Motorsport BMW rounding out the top 10. We will be back this afternoon for race 1 of the ADAC GT Masters. Join us at 3:10 local time. We'll look forward to seeing you then. Bye-bye.